Start. Well, we did the 18th chapter and we talked about the Rupakas. Let me finish. There are two more forms which I did not mention among the 10. The one is Vithi and the other is, I think Vithi is the only one which I left. So Vithi is a form which really is again a kind of a storytelling by one or two persons, and it is full of jokes and it is full of little episodes. It is perhaps something like what is happening on the TV shows today. But how exactly it was done, that is not well known, because there are not very many Vithis which are written. The things that have survived and which are known very well to us are actually largely the Natakas. And the reason being that the Natakas which have survived are works of literary quality, high literary quality. You would ask a simple question: why is it that the written text of all these various forms did not survive? For instance, why don't we have 10 or 20 Samavakaras, 30 Dims? We have lots of Prahasanas that have survived. We have lots of Natakas, one or two Prakaranas. Something like 80 to 90 texts, major texts of so-called ancient plays, so-called Sanskrit plays or ancient plays survive. And most of them are only these 3 or 4 kinds of Rupakas. Now the answer is very simple, because that which survives is great poetry. And those which were not of very high literary quality could not be preserved because they were used only at the time of performance. They must have been composed by different people for performances. And once the performances came to an end, there was no reason to preserve them. You preserve a Kalidas play because there is so much literary quality in all the verses and the poems and different shlokas in Abhigyan Shakuntalam or in Vikramur Varshiyam. Even Kalidas, only 3 plays of Kalidas survive. We don't know, he may have written 3 others or 10 others. Such a great poet probably produced many more than 3, but only these 3 survive. Because, as I said, this was a practical art. And the script was written for the production of that Dasharupaka. Once the production stopped, there was no reason to preserve the manuscripts, because preservation was so difficult. And manuscripts also were preserved by people who somewhere or the other were continuing the tradition of using those manuscripts, whether it is a Shastra or it is a Shastra related to Ayurveda or any other particular Vidya. So it was with the practice of that Vidya that you needed to preserve the manuscript, because you had to rewrite the manuscript 20 years, 30 years later, which meant that scholars who could read, rewrite, explain and discuss were necessary. So it was not just that you print it and put it in a library. And then of course dozens and dozens of libraries have been lost over a period of time. So this was the reason. Now, instead of going on to the 19th chapter, I'll first come to the 20th chapter because I want to tell you about the vrittis, which is a very crucial element in the understanding of Natya. You know, tomorrow morning, what I would want you is to come up with some questions regarding the present utility of Natyashastra. How is it that as a Bharatnatyam dancer or as somebody who would like to produce some kinds of performances, or as our friend here who is doing theatre, how is it that Natya Shastra can be of use to you? I mean, you have now heard from me a description, an exposition of the concepts and the principles of Natya Shastra. Can you put them to any practical use now? In making new compositions for Bharatnatyam or for any other dance form or for new performance forms? See, these are the real questions. After all, Natya Shastra, as you are seeing, is constantly talking about practices. As I said, this is a Lakshana Grantha. It is doing the Lakshanas of what? Of an art form. What is that art form called? A Lakshya. And what is the Lakshya here? Natya. So this is a Lakshana Grantha of the Vidya, the Lakshya, the practical art form called Natya. And if it is describing how Natya is performed, how it should be best performed to create a certain effect, then perhaps it can be of use to you even today. If it is not of use, then what have we gathered here for? So the best thing you can do is to put your mind, how can I use it now? To use Natyashastra today is not just to try and perform 108 karanas. That may be an exercise to do something else. You may want to do 108 karanas, learn them how to do it, just perform them in a sequence so that you have done a drill, an exercise, and you can use some of those karanas which are not used in present day numbers, you can introduce them. So that is one thing. But other than karanas, what are the things that can be used here? For instance, now, when we talked about the Dasharupakas, that there are 10 kinds of plays, can this be of some use to you? You know, Indian dance is undergoing very serious changes. Indian dance is almost a threatened with extinction art form. In last 10 years, there is no Indian dance on the film screen. Does it bother you or it doesn't bother you? Or you say, nahi, I am doing my Bharatnatyam in Kalak. I know what is, am I bothered about what's happening on the Bombay film screen? I would disagree with you. Because if dance has been wiped out from Loka, after all, Bombay film is big Loka. It is a world. It is an art form, whatever it is, high or low or very low, which influences the people. People means dancers of the future, boys and girls who are now 5-year-old or 6-year-old, and their idea of what dance should be. You see the big gap that has come in between. While we are all celebrating here, sitting in a premier institute of the country, Kalak, the great text called Natyashastra, while we are all talking here, what is happening outside in the world is a wiping out of the art form. Most traditional music has disappeared from films. No mridanga, no tabla, no sarangi, no sitar, no veena, nothing. So you have to think about it. What kind of music is becoming popular music? Because remember, popular and classical are not dissociated. It is from popular that classical emerges, and it is popular which is influenced by classical. In the Natyashastra, there is no distinction such as classical music or popular music. In none of the older texts on music, like Sangeet Ratnakar or Parshvade Sangeet Samay Sar or any other later text, there is no distinction that this is high class music and this is low class music. They only describe the different kinds of music. They describe them as forms. For instance, here Dasharupakas are described. Nowhere it is said that this is a low form, that Vithi is a third-rate form. It's meant for poor people only, or for uneducated only. There is not a single line to that effect here. They only talk of forms. Some forms may be less popular, some may be more popular, some would be patronized by some kinds of people and sections of society, and some others not so. So, the question that arises when we want to use our classical texts, our classical art forms, the question that arises is, how does it relate to the practice today? Right? Can it help you embellish further certain things in your own art form which you are transforming? For instance, you have seen here that this is one single broad spectrum art which covers theater, dance, music, everything. And you are practicing, let us say, Bharatnatyam, which is a dance form which emerges from the temple dances. A couple of days ago, I explained to you how this big, broad spectrum art form got constricted into temple dance. Suppose if you want to now expand it, if you want to bring dance closer to theater, or if you want to bring theater with a sensible creative use of dance, could you not find some useful things here? See, I would want you to ask those questions and have a discussion tomorrow, because we have 2 more sessions tomorrow, morning and afternoon. And those would be sessions which could be of practical use to you. We are looking at present in all classical dance form, whether it be Odissi or Bharatnatyam or any other, we are looking for new subjects. And today very often the state gives you a grant, do a performance on women power. Huh? I see a lot of it in Delhi, because in Delhi they have more money than elsewhere in the country, and the ministry dishes out, all right, dance you so and so, do a performance on, and I have seen, Stri Shakti and Matri Shakti and this and that. And then you take up a theme which is very abstract, and there are all kinds of combinations from different dance form, and something very fuzzy happens, right? And at the end there is either Durga shown or there is some other shown. Why not do something much more real and practical, like telling a story? Because dance says, Natyashastra says that there has to be an iti vratta. After I finish the kaishiki, the vrittis, I'll come to the story part of it, the iti vratta. That every play will have a story. It will have a plot. It will have something to talk about, that this is what happened. You see, when you teach children to speak, you tell them stories. And the child asks, what happened next? What happened then? Right? So, this what happened then, tataha kim, this is the then what? Right? This is the perennial question in any art form. Because every art form is depicting a bhava which is leading to another bhava. Bhavas are continuous. So one bhava and then tataha kim, phir kya hua? What is the other bhava? So that makes up the story. So if you are able to tell new stories, which are real stories, which are not ideals, that I show you a scene on Stri power or on a scene on upliftment of the poor, some of these social reformist ideas. If you are able to take a story, and let us for instance say that if I saw a very beautiful play, it's a play from somewhere in Karnataka. It was written by a Karnataka playwright. It is about Shambhuk, where Shambhuk is shown as a tapasvi. You may be able to tell me the name. Shudra Kuvempu. Yeah. So, Rashtrakavi Kuvempu writes the play Shudra Tapasvi. In this he has changed the story. So he has made the Lokadharmi, the earlier story, into a new story. The story is simply this, that when Ram goes and fires his arrow on Shambhuk, the arrow does not hit Shambhuk, but it goes to those who had complained about Shambhuk. Because Rama's barn is amogh. Rama's barn cannot go waste. It cannot fall to the ground. It has to kill. And it goes to the people who complained, who were not real Brahmins, but Brahmins in name only. And the Bharat threatens them till they recognize Shambhuk as a tapasvi. That he is really doing tapasya, that he has, it's not only that he has a right to do tapasya, he is a siddha. And he is somebody who knows more, who knows Ram, whereas those who have complained against him do not. And once they accept the fact, then the Baan goes back into the quiver of Rama. Right? Have I recalled the story correctly? Because I saw this play almost 10 years or 15 years ago. Now, what has the author done here? He has taken an ancient story. He has given it a different ending from Valmiki. In Valmiki, Shambhuk is suspended upside down from a tree, and then he is performing a tamasic tapasya and all that. So he has changed the story and given a new meaning. That a person from the lowest section of society can be a jnani, can be somebody who knows the ultimate truth. Tattva jnana is possible for him, and in this case it was, and therefore he is to be accepted by all those who are ignorant, irrespective of their social and caste status. Right? Now, a story like this, why cannot it not be performed in Bharatnatyam? If you can perform Manduka Shabdam, after all Manduka Shabdam is a very popular, I am sure you have learnt it. If you can perform something like that, isn't that one of the very classical repertoire of Bharatnatyam, Manduka Shabdam? I have seen it 50 times, right from Yamini Krishnamurti to very recent performances. Anyway, if you can perform any of these very traditional numbers as a story, why can you not perform this play? Now, in performance of this play, you may want to do certain changes. For instance, can you not introduce some dialogue? I mean, I am opening up what I see in the Natyashastra before me. It is so simple. Today, in the present art form of Odissi or Kathak, it is forbidden that the nati or the nut speaks something in whatever way. But suppose if you try to bring this close to theatre by introducing dialogue, then you have a fresh art form. And if in this you also introduce, before you do, instead of the very typical Varanam or very typical Bharatnatyam Mangalacharan, if you do a small Purvaranga of some sort, you don't have to do all these 19 steps, then you have enlarged your art. I see no reason why it cannot be done. And it is not necessary that when you do this, then the dialogue is in Sanskrit. Maybe it is in 2 or 3 languages of the area where you live. If you do it in Chennai, then in Tamil and Telugu. If you want to make one of those Brahmins a Telugu Brahmins who is threatened with the arrow, you can use these principles. I see no reason why it cannot be done. And this is how Natyashastra can be of a very useful, practical, useful application. I mean, I was able to think of this just while talking to you now. When I looked at him, I thought of Karnataka and I thought of the play, the great playwright, and this thing came to my mind. If you put your mind to it, you will have many more beautiful ideas and the art form can be expanded. I think if you start this approach in a practical manner, instead of this top-down approach, something top coming from Delhi as an order that this is the great agenda of artistic creation. If you just start from where you are, expand what you have learned, I think new art forms will be born and it would be a greater success. Now, the 20th chapter says, Samuthanam tu vrittinam vyakyasyama anupurvashaha yatha vastudbhavam chaiva kavyanam cha vikalpanam. There is a story which is told here, which we are going to skip as we are short of time. The 4 vrittis are defined. The first vritti is called the Kaishiki vritti. What does the word Kaishiki means? Related to Kesha. And Kesh, hair. Kaishiki, related to hair, means that it is something related to Shringara. Because what do Puritans do of all kinds from all over the world? They first cut the hair. If they want that for a woman or for a man, nothing related to Shringar should be thought of, then they say shave off your hair. So if you want to become a sannyasi, shave off your hair. If you have lost your husband and you are now a widow, shave off your hair. Right? Or don't show your hair. Women must cover their heads. They should not show their hair at all. So association of hair with sexuality is a natural threat to all those who want to evade or bury Shringar or erotic feelings. Right? And if you want to express Shringar, then you use your hair. So that which is related to hair, related to Shringar, is Kaishiki. And also, there is a word which means very fine, right? And that is Keshagra. Like Kushagra is something that pierces. The Kusha grass, it's very pointed and it can pierce. Similarly, a fine point is also, the tip of the hair is very fine. So those feelings and those ideas which are very fine and subtle, they are also Kaishika. So Kaishiki vritti therefore is the erotic and also the subtle. If a play then is on the theme of a man-woman relationship, Shringar, then it has to be done in the Kaishiki vritti. It will have all the Angaharas, it will have all the graceful charis, it would have all the Sukumarata, the delicacies of production. Now, if you are doing a play which is on this theme, then all acting, all music, every aspect of production must be dominated by that vritti. It's not that you will have only Shringar. No, there may be a lot of Karuna in it. There may be some portions of Bhaya in it. But just as in a given, let's say, a piece of music or in a poem, there is a dominating idea. Similarly, there is a dominating vritti in a play. So, if you are producing something, a Kaishiki vritti, then the Kaishiki vritti dominates. The other vritti is Bharati. Bharati means where speech dominates. So if you are going to have lots of discussions on very ordinary matters or practical matters, let us say a play like Mudra Rakshas, where the Prime Minister is talking to different other Karyavahakas or different other smaller level bureaucrats. Because it is a play on a political situation. It is an intrigue. There is no romance there. There is no love relationship there. Nothing of that sort. So, you would use the Bharati vritti. There would be more of straight talking. There would be less of singing. There would be lots of singing if there is Karuna, even without Kaishiki vritti. For instance, if you were to produce an Ank, Utsrishtakank, in which one of the Rupakas we talked about, in which there is wailing of women at the loss of their sons and husbands, in which they are insecure and they are just wiped out and they are wailing for protection, they are struck so deeply by grief, then here you can use music. You can use a lot of music, you can use a lot of song, because song and music would express the karuna and the grief. Here you need not use the Bharati vritti only, but you would not use Kaishiki vritti either, because it is the opposite of Shringar here. The Rupakas are performed according to vrittis. The choice is according to the story and the bhavas which are in every Rupaka, but when you bring it to practical production, then you make use of these four practical vrittis: Kaishiki, Bharati, Satvati, where the dialogue is even more concentrated on words, on subtle ideas and subtle expressions. And finally, Arabhati. Arabhati means in which there is a lot of running around, killing, breaking, fights, destruction, right? So these are the four vrittis, and you would mix them to make a Dasharupa. For instance, let's take a Prahasan. A Prahasan will not have much room for Kaishiki, but a Prahasan can use certain motions of Kaishiki in order to make fun. So if you are making fun of a courtesan, then you show her as a sloppy courtesan. Or you can make use of that Kaishiki vritti as a satire. For instance, in the play Bhagavad Ajjukiyam, where the spirit of the courtesan enters the body of a sannyasi, and the sannyasi becomes and talks and acts like a courtesan. Here you can use all that gestures of Kaishiki vritti for hasya. But the vritti there would be largely Bharati. It cannot be Arabhati because there is no serious fight in it. It's only a dialogue. It will be Satvati, Bharati, and a use of Kaishiki for satire, as in Bhagavad Ajjukiyam. If you are going to do Avijnana Shakuntalam or Mrichakadikam or Swapnavasav Datta, it will be full use of Kaishiki. Particularly if you are doing a work like Swapnavasav Datta, because it's highly symbolic. There is very little action in it. You would have to use a lot of song in it. Not even much dance, but song. As the play has many scenes of extensive viraha and recalling. And you know, recalling and remembrance is best done through music. In that you would use the Kaishiki vritti. If you are doing a dim or a samavakar or a vyayog in which there is lots of fighting between different characters, then the dominant vritti would be Arabhati, because it shows all fights, it shows all combats, and you can show all kinds of duels in it. See, you can show a lot of what we call now in Bollywood fight or stunt. So it will be full of stunts, ancient stunts. And stunts are described in Natyashastra, that various kinds of calamities like an earthquake or a mountain falling or the earth opening, all of these things are depicted, and they would be happening in these action plays. And in the ancient plays, these stunts were used in order to create the effect of Bhayanak or the effect of Raudra in these plays. So they would use the Arabhati. The four vrittis, therefore, are essential to create the 10 kinds of rupakas. The 10 rupakas certainly are also created by choice of character, by choice of social milieu, because this theatre was depicted a hierarchical society. And if you see all the Dashrupakas, you would also notice that Natya was not just for the kings. There is a very, very common misunderstanding about Natya, ancient Natya or classical Indian plays, that they were very restricted. They were produced for the kings and the queens in the Rajagrihas or in the special areas, that they were accessible to rich Kshatriya, not give fatwas against a Salman Rushdie, or you could not threaten an author by breaking his or her head, or an artist by burning his painting. Because the biggest punishment which the king, even the king, could give was nirgaman, leave my territory. And very often, the rival king will welcome him. And this happened outside India also. Like the great Greek philosopher Socrates, he was given the option either to accept death as punishment or to go to another kingdom. And he of course said that I am a patriot, I shall not go to another kingdom, I shall drink poison and die. Now, various people enjoyed theatre and it was performed at all sections of society. The very fact that 10 plays, the Vithi, the Samavakar and the Dim, they all show that this was a theatre in which the poor, the rich, and those belonging to the higher strata and to the lower strata. There is a verse in Natyashastra describing the taste of people. It says, Acharyaha samam icchanti. Among the prekshakas or among the audience, those who are acharyas of Natya, those who know everything about Natya, great specialists of Natya, when they see a play, they like to see everything there in it. Good dance, good speech, good acting, nice story, great literary gems spoken, so and so forth. Acharyaha samam icchanti, vyaktam icchanti pandita. And those who are literary people, they like everything pronounced correctly. Pronunciation is very important. Or vyaktam icchanti panditaha could also mean those who are pandit of a particular art form, they would want that that art form is performed well. So if I am a dancer, I'd like to see, if I'm a pandit, an acharya of dance, then I'd like to see that dance is done. Vyaktam icchanti pandita, narya madhuram icchanti. And the women in the audience, they want sweet things. They should be love songs, they should be sad songs, something sweet should be there. Naryaha madhuram icchanti. And those who are neither women, nor pandit, nor acharya, what do they want? Vikrushtam. They want all kinds of running around and breaking and shrieking and fighting and action. And they want the vigorous things. So this very shloka proves that this was not an exclusive kind of an audience. It was an inclusive, highly inclusive audience consisting of people of various kinds. And this is one example, but as we are going along, we are seeing again and again that the text was meant for a large number of people. Now, the important thing about the 10 rupakas is, that they provided also a ground for evolution into later rupakas. So, Natak evolved into Natika, something which had a much greater emphasis on, like Ratnavali, a play called Ratnavali, a greater emphasis on Shringara. And this was of course produced for the kings largely because it showed how kings could fall in love, how nicely and in a cavalier manner they fell in love with one woman after another. Well, because it was politically convenient for kings to have many wives, because you made a alliance when you married the daughter of another distant king who perhaps was threatening you, and you wanted to have an alliance, you did it. This was the ancient method between monarchical setups to have stability of kingdom. That if somebody is my brother-in-law, if his sister is my wife, then we have a bond. And so he shall not attack my kingdom, I shall not attack my. Of course, sometimes it worked the other way, as it happens in families, that the closer you are, the more bitter is the quarrel. But then by and large it helped. And so Natika was one form. And various other forms kept on developing. There is a long list of these forms. Dhananjaya's Dashrupak and later other texts, they mention a large number, and you have many forms mentioned in Sangeet Ratnakar. So Sangeet Ratnakar is 13th century work. So by 13th century, say 400 years after Abhinav Gupt, several forms were developed. And it is from them that we have forms like Jatra and Kudiyattam and others. Because remember, as I told you, theatre is dependent on the audience. It is a form which adjusts to the audience which is available. You bring entertainment to those who are willing to pay for it, come to it. And so you adjust your art form to it. As bhakti became the dominant theme, and as theatre could not be performed in the cities, wherever there was Islamic territory, it was not possible to perform theatre inside. So it was performed largely outside. Music